time zones and what's the easiest way to learn them, because me and my class are working on them. Now I'll finish the video with a big jump. Now back up so I don't fall. Bye!
Hi, Charlotte. Just wanted to jump in and say great question. What are time zones? How do they work and how can we learn about them? Well, to answer those questions, we should first ask ourselves the question, what is time? I'm not going to answer that. That's a question for another day and about 4 more degrees for me. But a more important question to answer when we're talking about time zones is how we measure time. Now, back in the days before clocks, we used to measure time using the sun, and we still do this sometimes. And when we do, we call it solar time. Solar time works like this. Because the Earth is round, sun only shines on half of it at a time. And the side that sun is shining on, we call, I think you're ahead of me here, day. And the side that's in darkness, we call, I think you're way ahead of me here too, that's right, yad. Which makes perfect sense because yad is day spelled backwards. I'm told it's actually night, which is the same word we use for an old European warrior who rides around on a horse wearing a metal suit. Spelled differently, sounds the same. English is weird. Anyway, when we're talking about solar time, we say that it's noon when the sun is directly over our heads. And because the Earth is round, when the sun's directly over my head, it's not over the head of somebody a couple hundred miles that way. And when the sun when the Earth moves so that the sun is directly overhead of my friend over here a couple hundred miles over, it's no longer over my head. Meaning when it's noon for me, not noon for my friend. When it's noon for my friend, it's not noon for me. So people experience noons at all different times. You know what? Let me show you. So here's a friend you might remember from another video. So here's our Earth, and here's the sun. Now as the Earth spins on its axis from east to west, the sun starts to rise in various places. Now here's where I live in New York, and as the sun gets directly over New York, it's noon in New York.
Hey, it's noon here!
Then the Earth keeps rotating. About an hour or two later, 2 hours later actually, the sun is directly above Colorado, where you live. Now it's noon in Colorado. Ma, is it noon already? Guess it's time to load the dogs up into the Subaru, drive to the organic market for some ancient grains, and then wait for 3 hours for the water to boil to cook it. I love living here. And then an hour later, the sun gets directly over California, where Casey lives, and then it's noon in California. Dude, it's totally noon! Oh man, I don't know whether to go to the beach or to found $1 billion tech startup and take over the world. Oh wait. Oh man, it's gonna rain. No, I'll just stay home and order In-N-Out burger. I know Kung Fu. Make sense? Good. Because this is really heavy. Whew. Okay. Learning is hard. Now eventually we figured out how to make clocks, which made telling time a lot easier and much more precise than solar time. It worked on cloudy days, and it didn't require staring directly into the sun, which you should never do. But because days get longer and shorter as we go through our year, and clocks just keep pounding on at a constant pace like the cold-hearted machines that they are, well, sometimes solar noon and watch noon didn't always synchronize perfectly. But that was okay. Everybody just set their watches to the big clock in the town square. Every town square had its own town time on its own town clock. So if you go into a new town, you just have to show up, look at the town clock, set your watch to it. Like one of the biggest, most famous town clocks in the world, Big Ben in London.
I hear from the chiming of Big Ben it is 12 of the clock, and therefore time for a midday repast.
Or you could just say it's 12 o'clock, time for lunch.
Ah, yes, my good man, how modern! And it definitely saves time. 12 of the clock.
12
12 of the clock. 12 of the clock. 12
o'clock.
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock. 12 o'clock.
It's lunch. Yes.
Right, mate. It wasn't until we invented railroads, which started to carry passengers huge distances at unimaginable speeds, 60 miles an hour, that this really became a problem.
My train leaves London at 5:31 and arrives in Cambridge at 6:43. So that is 1 hour and 13 minutes. But is that 6:43 London time or 6:43 Cambridge time? Let's see. If I should take 13 and add to 6:43, I carry the 1 and... that's not right. This is too complicated. You know, I'll just aberrate.
The solution to this problem was time zones. The idea is that we split the Earth into 24 strips from north to south, one for each hour of the day. And then everyone inside each of those time zone strips agrees to set their watch to the same time. Now, we create these strips along lines of longitude. They're also called meridians. You want a review of latitude and longitude? Good, me too. Latitude and longitude are lines on a grid we invented to precisely locate anything on the surface of the Earth. Lines of longitude run north and south, and lines of latitude run east and west. For example, Montana, Colorado, and Mexico are on the same line of longitude, 105 degrees, but very different lines of latitude, as you can see here. You can locate anything on Earth by finding where it is on these lines. I always have a hard time remembering which is latitude and which is longitude, so to remember, I say that lines of latitude look kind of like rungs on a ladder. Back to time zones. If we start at 0 degrees longitude, that's also called the prime meridian, first meridian. That is, by the way, in England, which is over to the east here where Uncle Bay lives.
It's noon.
That is 0 degrees longitude. And then if we go 15 degrees from there to the west or 15 degrees to the east, that's a new time zone. And every time we change time zones, we add or subtract an hour from the time that it is in England. If we're going west to east, we add an hour. It gets later. If we're going east to west, we subtract an hour. It gets earlier. So if you know the number of time zones between where you are and a friend is, all you have to do is add or subtract by the same number of hours, and you'll figure out what time it is there. Cool, right? So, let's say it's 7 in the morning, and I want to have a Zoom call with Auntie Casey in LA. So I look at my time zone map, and I see that New York is 1, 2, 3 time zones away from LA. And LA is 3 time zones to the west of me. So I know that I have to subtract hours from my local time to figure out what time it is where Auntie Casey is in LA. So it is 3 time zones away. So if it's 7 in the morning for me, it's 6, 5, 4 in the morning for Auntie Casey, which means I'm not going to call her because she is not a morning person.
Yeah, seriously, don't.
But wait, if we're going plus, 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 minus, 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 minus all the way around the world, what happens when we get to the other side of the world? The pluses and the minuses are going to crash into each other. Well, on the exact other side of the world from England, somewhere in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, there's a line. And on this side of the line, it is 12 hours earlier than it is in England. On this side of the line, it's 12 hours later. That means that there's an entire day of difference on either side of this line. And we call this the international date line. So, if you are traveling from east to west, you add a day. If you're traveling from west to east, you go back in time. And if you wanted to, you could jump back and forth between the days. And I know you're a good jumper. Now, if you look at a map of all the time zones, you notice they all don't go in exactly straight lines. Well, this makes sense because sometimes if a line would divide a big city or even a small country or a small state into 2 time zones, We may want to nudge the line one way or the other just so going to work and school doesn't get confusing for the people that live there. Jonathan, you're late! No, I'm not. Huh? Go sit down. Let's review. Oof. Oh no. We created time zones so that we could organize, travel, and communicate more easily around the world, and so that daytime and nighttime occur at around the same hours for everyone around the world. There are 24 time zones, one for each hour of the day. To figure out what time it is anywhere in the world, count the number of time zones between you and that place. And if the place is east of you, add that many hours to your time. If it's west, you subtract. Fun facts. China is big enough to have 5 time zones, but they decided the whole country is just on one. So if the sun rises at 6 a.m. on the easternmost part of China, it wouldn't rise until 11 a.m. at the westernmost part. Weird. Until 2018, North Korea set their clocks 30 minutes behind South Korea, just to be cool and different. Since time zones are divided along lines of longitude, at the North and South Poles where all the lines of longitude meet, you could run in a circle and cover all 24 time zones in a few seconds.
Explorer's log. Day 165. It's very cold. The conditions are challenging but manageable. But there is nothing here. There is no living thing. Not a person, not an animal, not a tree, anywhere around here that I can see anywhere. I'm alone, but I'm here to attempt to break the world record of the fastest travel through all 24 time zones. Here we go. Wish me luck. Time starts now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 24. Yes! Oh, victory!
Well, Charlotte, I hope this video helps you understand a little bit more about time zones. It's really just something we invented to help measure something that already exists, time. So, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed seeing your friend the bowling ball again. By the way, aren't you proud of me that I didn't drop it this time? Oh, not again, not again, not again, not again. Oh, okay. We're fine. Dateline. Get my marker off. Out. Oh, there we go. Classy operation. The International Date.